My goodness, it feels like forever since I've been on here to read Malcolm. In the meantime, I got some new glasses to help block some of the rays from my phone and computer. You like? Anyways, last week in Malcolm, we were learning about the locker. So Malcolm went to the locker. It had the sketch that it was a safe spot, and he went up the pipe and ended up on the 4th floor under the radiator. So it was a quick and easy way for him to get up to the 4th floor. Let's continue on with this chapter to see what happens. Malcolm crept out. Now where would he find a cat up here? And for the first time, Malcolm wondered, why was the cat up here? Where had Snip come from? Did she ever go out? Yes, this was the 4th, all right. Even if Malcolm didn't recognize the radiator, he'd known the dusty, chalky, stale air, the jumble of old school furniture, desks, chairs, filing cabinets, old computers. It was the perfect obstacle course for a rat. Or a cat. Malcolm eased out under a table, edging along the underside of it. Across the hall from him was a room. If his rat sense of direction was accurate, it was directly above the library on the 2nd floor and Aggie's room on the 1st floor. Malcolm crept through the door. It was a classroom at one time. High ceilings stretched above him with 2 rusty ceiling fans at the top. The wall of windows must have at one time flooded the room with light, but now 2 were boarded over, and another was cracked. All of them were streaked with grime. The moonlight barely penetrated through the glass. Long, scarred black tables stretched across the room, their surfaces coated with dust. In between the tables were taller counters with deep black sinks in the middle. Malcolm crept closer. His pink nose jiggled like mad. Gas. Chemicals. Malcolm knew this scent. It was the smell of science. Through the dim light, that's blurry. There. Malcolm saw boxes of hand sanitizer, lemon cleanser, and an open jar of paste, identical to the one in the kindergarten room, just like Polly and Tink had described. Polly had been right about the smell, too. Malcolm's head swam as he carefully avoided the puddles on the floor. No sign of Aggie or the cat, though, but there were fresh scrapes in the dust on the floor where something had been dragged or pushed. Malcolm's ears swiveled at the sound of a slight rustle under the cracked window. "Aggie?" he whispered. He wondered if cats or iguanas had a keener sense of hearing. He'd figured he'd soon find out. Then, from the hallway, footsteps. Malcolm glanced around. He clambered up a bookcase. A light bounced around in the hall. Who could it be? It was well after midnight by now, and besides, this floor was closed. Whoever it was shuffled through the mess out in the hall. There was a soft thump, then, ow! The flashlight beam pierced the darkness of the science room. A tall shadow, definitely a lanky, navigated the tables and crept to the boarded-up window. The lanky poked around, looking on shelves and in drawers along the edge of the floor and wall. Then the windowsills. With a flash, the beam hit the window and reflected light onto the lanky's face. "Mr. Biney, what were you doing there?" There was a radiator in the room, too, under the cracked window. You sat on it and ran your hands through your hair. You pulled out a Granny Smith apple. After staring at it a minute, you took a bite and reached into your shirt pocket. Out came the little blue box, that jewelry box. You flipped it open. From Malcolm's vantage point above you, he could see what you didn't know before. What he didn't know before. Yes, the box was still empty. Now Malcolm was fairly sure you hadn't spent all this time staring at an empty box, and it was pretty clear that you were looking for something up here. So he had to assume that what you were looking for was supposed to be in the box. What he hadn't understood was why. But it was clear from the state of your rumpled hair that it was important. You took another bite of your apple and sighed before snapping the box shut and tucking it away. "Mark, what are you doing up here?" Malcolm's head whipped around. Miss Brumble stood in the door, her own flashlight in hand. What the cheese? The school was supposed to be empty at this time of night, but so far it had been busier than the drinking fountain after gym class. You jumped too. "Ronnie, you scared me!" She crossed the room and flashed her light around. "Geez, what a mess," she muttered. Then she aimed the light at you. Ooh. Sorry for the vent. "No, really, what are you doing here?" You patted your shirt pocket. Well, remember when I was up here helping you move this stuff around the other night? I think I left something. My flashlight. See, I found it. You hopped up. We can probably go, but what are you doing here? Mrs. Brumble frowned. I was leaving for the night and heard that noise again. That shriek. You grinned. Mr. Biney, you mean the ghost of McKenna? Miss Brumble snorted. No, I think someone's been up here. All this stuff has been moved and spilled. And look, she pointed, another window's cracked. She put her hand on the radiator. And the heat's on. She sat down on the radiator, pulled your apple away, and bit into it. I wish I could lay my hands on the kid breaking all these windows. Do you know that the kindergarten room window was broken and their iguana is missing? I tell you, I'm not sure those pets are worth it. When they're not making a mess, they're breaking kids' hearts. Malcolm's own heart panged at the mention of Aggie. You sat back down beside her. Oh, I don't know. I think the kids need to learn to take care of something, and sometimes a pet is the only friend they've got. Yes, but if something happens, remember the third graders last year when their mouse or whatever ran away? I had a kitten when I was a girl. When I lost it, oh, I was devastated. You squeezed her hand, then slid to the floor. Come on, it's going to be an early morning. You were about to leave when a cry pierced the room. Not a scream from inside the room, but from somewhere nearby and above the room. Gristle, Malcolm ducked. The ghost of McKenna! Then something solid and heavy and very unghost-like hit Malcolm. Hit him so hard he flew off the shelf and landed with a thud and burst of dust on the table, right in front of your shocked faces. Do you remember that night when you saw the rat on the 4th floor, Mr. Biney? Didn't know it was your own pet mouse, did you?
Whoa, what a suspenseful ending to that chapter. Who do you think smacked Malcolm like that? I have one guess, but I can't be too sure. I wonder if Mr. Biney is ever going to find that piece of jewelry that he's looking for. Tune in tomorrow for chapter 14 called A Deal with a Cat. I think we can assume what cat that might be. Have a great day.